Hi, my name is Nicholas Vince, and you are watching SlasherPepper, which is just bloody amazing show. So make sure you watch this as often as possible. Hi Roger.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you very much. Yes,
Awesome.
no, I'm doing very well.
Awesome. So glad to have you on the show.
Thank
And
you.
My first question was, what are you up to nowadays?
What am I up to nowadays? Well, there's the YouTube show, The Chattering Hour with Nicholas Vince, which we've been running since October of last year. We're on hiatus for a couple of weeks at the moment. We come back next week, a week tomorrow, the 29th of July is the next episode. We come back on the 29th of July. And that's been so much fun. That has been so much fun. Just getting to talk with some really interesting people like Malcolm McDowell, Tracy Lords, and got some really cool guests, which we're just trying to nail down at the moment coming up as well. But yeah, been really very, very good fun. And what else have I been doing? I've been working on some graphic designs. One of my interests and passions is calligraphy and letter forms and characters, particularly the ampersand. So I've literally just finished in the last couple of days, and I'm just putting it together so I can release it to the world. A history of the ampersand, the evolution of the ampersand. You know, the old-fashioned things which used to show humans as apes all the way up to Homo sapiens.
Nice.
I've kind of done the same thing from the ampersand, because the ampersand, its earliest form was the Latin word et for and, et, and the earliest form was found in Pompeii. So it was buried in 79 AD when Vesuvius erupted. So I'm kind of tracing the history of how that became that figure that we're used to seeing. I couldn't believe I just drew an ampersand with my finger. This is how much I have been staring at the ampersands in the last month or so. So it's been doing that. So I've been doing some graphic work, and there was some filming end of last year. I'm just waiting for those to come out as well. So yeah, I've been busy, really busy.
Awesome. Nice. Yeah, and so far you've had the privilege to talk to some awesome guests on the Chattering Hour.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking, I mean, I think the great thing is, because I'm also an actor, it's an actor talking to an actor a lot of the time, which I find helps me really talk to people about their work. And I love Lynn Shay was one of the guests that I had on earlier in the year. And she was talking about acting being truth, and whenever you're on film, and you have to be in a place of truth, which I thought was a wonderful insight. Chris Sarandon was talking about his career. And have you watched the Chris Sarandon one?
No, I've not.
Watch the Chris Sarandon. I recommend all of them. I think they're all great, because everyone brings their own, absolutely.
Yes,
Lynn Shay, as I say, is really interesting. Chris Sarandon was talking about, because Chris Sarandon was in a film called Dog Day Afternoon. Now, he's a straight guy, but playing a transsexual, which an incredibly powerful film. Also stars Robert De Niro. A very powerful, very moving film. And his performance is extraordinary. He was talking about how he got the part, why it meant so much to him, and so on. So yeah, I have been having huge fun and learning an awful lot about how these great actors really approach their craft.
Yeah. Which one would you say is your favorite so far that you've done?
Oh, really? I don't. Yeah, it's instantly. It's like asking me to choose a favorite child, because they're all so. It really is also. I think Lynn Shay was very fascinating. Malcolm McDowell, obviously, had such an extraordinary career and done so much. Tracy Lords was really fascinating as well. Daniel Krauss, who's the only author that I've had on the show, is really interesting, because he was talking about his work with George Romero on the book The Living Dead, which was George's last book, and Daniel, after he passed away, Daniel worked with the material and got that to publication. So talking to Daniel was very nice as well. But honestly, G. Tom Mack, composer G. Tom Mack, that was fascinating because, well, apart from anything else, he ended up giving us a tour of his home because his battery ran out.
Nice.
But again, just talking to somebody who's a composer rather than an actor or something. Darren Lynn Bousman, about the Saw movies and how Darren Lynn Bousman's story about pitching a Hellraiser reboot with Clive Barker to the guys at Dimension Films. That's a really fascinating story as well. I mean, there is just so much. I mean, all of them, I think, are really interesting people to chat to.
For sure. Nice. Sounds like you had a blast.
I did. I've had huge fun.
Awesome.
Fun. Looking forward to having some more fun as well, talking to people.
Fantastic. And here to go back earlier in your career, you could have seen it coming. What was it like working on the Hellraiser films, and how long were you on set?
That's a very good question. I think in terms of actually being on set, okay, I have something like 8 days in the back of my mind now. I don't know if that's true or not. I've actually got a call sheet from one of the days. I mean, somebody somewhere has probably got all the call sheets that actually tell me exactly how many days I was on. I think I may have been contracted for 5, but ended up by doing 8. That sounds about right, because I know how was it on set? It was fun. It was fascinating. The whole experience was extraordinary because I got to work with Clive Barker, who was a friend and still remains one of my closest friends. But it wasn't just working with Clive, it was working with all the guys from Image Animation who did the makeup.
Yeah.
And that whole process, but also, extraordinary bunch of talented people, and people like Andrew Robinson, who's just such a lovely man. And again, a really fascinating person to talk to. And Claire Higgins and all those guys. So yeah, I think I was on for about 8 days. I mean, the reason I had 3 extra days is because they put me in the complete makeup, the Chatterer makeup, during which I more or less couldn't hear, speak or see when I was wearing that makeup. It was very physically challenging. I remember they got me into the makeup, left me in it for about 8 hours, and then said, we can't film you today, Nick.
No way.
2 days in a row, and I got paid for it. It was great,
Yes.
But it's just like, really, seriously. I mean, that's what happens. That's what happens on film sets.
Right. That's so. Oh, that sucks.
Really sucks. I remember one of those days. I obviously, as I'm saying, I really couldn't hear, speak, or see much whilst I was wearing it. There was just a little tiny pinhole on my left eye that I could see through. I remember I laid down on a bed because the house we were filming and the house that features in the film was a real house. It used to be bed sitting rooms, and basically your bedroom and your sitting room were the one thing. You might have a little cooking place in the corner. It's student accommodation. Really cheap accommodation, and I think it was about 6 bed sits. And when the production company moved in, it had just stopped being used for beds. And basically, they took the whole house for about a month or so. And I remember there was a bed in one of the rooms. I was like, I just want to lie down. I'm just going to have a lie down. So I lay down, and Rosemary Sylvester Fisher, who was looking after me that day, she lay on the bed next to me. Rosemary, incidentally, was the lady who actually created all those wonderful leather costumes, designed by Jane Wildgoose, but created by Rosemary. Anyway, she was looking after me one day. She lay on the bed next to me. We both fell asleep, and Rosemary woke up first. So I was basically waking up to screams because the poor girl, literally just rolled over in bed to find herself lying next to the Chatterer. Anyway, that's how I remember it. Yeah, so yeah, it was fun. It was a really great experience.
You know, it's actually funny now that you we just talked about the chattering hour, and now we're talking about your character, the Chatterer. Now I connect the dots. I feel like such an idiot for not realizing that sooner.
Yeah, because I used to have another YouTube show. I did, over 130 episodes of the previous show, which I'd done, which was Chattering with Nicholas Vince. And that's still up on YouTube on my channel. The Chattering
nice.
Hour is on Chris Rowe Management. But yeah, whatever I do, it's going to, the Chatterer kind of is there somewhere.
Yes.
I talk about doing graphic design and so on. I've done some graphic designs and it really needs to do some more based on the Chatterer. And of course, my signature is basically my little drawing of the Chatterer, which I do when I sign my signature. I'm so grateful to have been part of Hellraiser and the fact that, that's what I'm known for. I'm known for playing the Chatterer in Hellraiser nearly 35 years ago now. And yeah, that's good. That's cool.
It's like Han Solo to Harrison Ford, or Sean Connery to James Bond.
Yes. Yes. They're never,
Nicholas Vince is the Chatterer, right?
Yes. Yeah. I think yes, absolutely. I think Sean Connery really tried to live down the James Bond stuff. And those gentlemen have had huge careers outside, me less so. But yeah, that's kind of what we're known for.
Right. Awesome. And I was also wondering more about the makeup process. Like, how long did that take?
It was actually fairly simple for me. Getting into the Chatterer makeup was actually fairly straightforward because it wasn't glued to my face, unlike Doug Bradley, who played Pinhead, or Grace Kirby, who was playing female Cenobite, and Barbie, who did it in this, Barbie Wilde, who played it in the second, female Cenobite in the second movie. Their makeup were pieces glued to their skin. For myself and Simon Bamford, who played Butterball in the first two Hellraiser films, it was a mask. Now I had this, like, as I say, it was difficult for both of it. I think Simon probably had it tougher because his was just a one piece that went over the top. Mine was more complex. So basically it started off with the teeth that you see are replicas of my teeth.
Oh, nice.
They're plastic and they were attached to my teeth. So they kind of sat outside my face like that. And then over that was the mask. And then they cut up condoms to glue between the teeth and the mask to represent the gums. And then they squirted KY jelly. I don't know if you're familiar with that product.
I'm not.
No, it's basically a sexual lubricant, is what it is.
Oh,
it's a water-based jelly.
So interesting.
It's even more interesting for the 16-year-old member of the Image Animation. He had to go around to all the local chemists buying this stuff because they kept on using it, not just on me. Basically, it's a clear see-through jelly that comes out of a tube. So it got squirted into my mouth and to represent saliva, basically. So the glistening that you see in the mouth isn't really saliva because it's all makeup. So that went on my makeup. That's basically how the makeup was done.
Yeah, usually it's either lubricant for that sort of stuff or baby oil.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, of course you can't use baby oil with latex.
So that's that makes sense. Right.
It actually eats into the latex, so it had to be a water-based product because oil. Back in those days, we weren't using silicone; they were using foam rubber, latex foam. So so no baby oil. We had vegetable oil was smeared onto the leather costumes. So once we'd actually got into the leather costumes, they used to rub us down with vegetable oil to make them glisten.
Nice.
And then if you look very carefully, all the Cenobites have dripping blood on the end of our fingers. So before each shot, they used to have a little plastic cup of blood. and I always remember the cold of putting the tips of my fingers,
right.
That sensation of putting the tips of your fingers into a cold liquid.
And
so
I mean, this is just an assumption, but I assume that the costume was very hot, and then like the dripping was really cold, like in contrast to that.
I mean, it wasn't really, really hot because we were filming in October and November, and they don't
right, yeah,
heat, because they have these big lights on you. They don't actually heat the studios.
yeah.
So it's actually really quite cold. Though, funnily enough, on Hellbound, Hellraiser 2, where I was playing the Chatterer Cenobite, they did put me in front of a big light. For our entrance, we had this big light behind us. And I remember one of the makeup guys saying, "Nick, are you hot?" I said, "Yeah, I am quite warm." He said, "Well, we're going to move you because you're smoldering." It just dried out all the leather costume and so on. So I was fine. I wasn't burned at all.
Awesome. And are you much of a horror fan yourself? And if so, what are some of your favorites?
Okay. Yes, I am. I mean, I like what I call intelligent horror.
Yeah.
I like the Saw movies. I really enjoy the Saw movies because it's not just jump scares. There's a lot of psychology, and this is what I mean by an intelligent film. There's got to be saying something about the human condition, as far as I'm concerned. I grew up with the first horror movies I will have seen were Frankenstein, the black and white Universal films, Frankenstein, Dracula, the Wolfman, Phantom of the Opera, where basically the monsters are the victims in those films. You have a lot of sympathy. Even Dracula, you feel sorry for because he's cursed. He doesn't want to go around sucking people's life, but it's what he has to do in order to stay alive. Wolfman, Larry Talbot, it's not his fault. It's just he happened to be defending a woman and he gets bitten by a werewolf and is cursed with this. And it's how he deals with that. So I like, favorite movies are going to be by Roger Corman. Mask of the Red Death is probably my favorite, with Vincent Price. Because that is a meditation. Funnily enough, it's about a plague. It's about a pandemic, and about Prince Prospero, who locks himself up in a castle and with all his friends, and it has some cracking one-liners in it, and but it's also what is fear, what is death, how does God can't be the God of this world because he wouldn't allow such evil to happen. Therefore, as the world is evil, the devil must be the God of this world. Therefore, you should worship the devil because he's obviously the Lord and Master of this world. And it's not necessarily a philosophy I subscribe to, but that's the philosophy in the film.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, those are kind of my favorite films.
Awesome. Nice. And speaking of philosophical stuff, here are some philosophical questions. And it's also about ruling the world, actually. If you ruled the world, what would it look like?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. Okay. I joined the Green Party in the UK in October last year because I just got so fed up of, as one member put it the other day, just screaming at the TV and just thinking, I've got to do something about this now. I'm really wishing I'd done a lot of it earlier on. I think it would be far more sensible. I think the world would be basically more sensible if I ruled the world. I hope. I mean, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Yeah. So the moment you say you can rule the world, it's very difficult if you are in that position not to just say everyone should do things like this because it's sensible. I think we would have a lot more respect for the environment. And that's kind of what interests me and so on. And that's, funnily enough, what I'm working for. My reason for joining the Green Party is that it's like, as I say, rather than just screaming at the TV, I was saying, politicians, actually just going out and joining a political party and doing something about it. So yeah, it would be a lot more sensible. And I'm sorry, Richard Branson and Elon Musk and Bezos, your rockets are a bad idea. They speak nothing to humanity. They speak only to your hubris and arrogance and getting your mates to have an extraordinary experience, but the costs of billions and this whole idea of going to the Mars, etc. Why not just use that vast wealth and intelligence to actually sort out poverty and the climate crisis? You know, the whole idea that humanity's future lies amongst the other planets, to me, is madness. You know the film Independence Day? Yeah, where they talk about these dreadful aliens that are going to come to our planet and ravage it of all its resources and then move on to the next one. I'm thinking, you're talking about human beings. Yeah, that's exactly what humanity has done and is doing. It's trying to ravage this planet and then hopefully get off and repeat the process elsewhere. So I've always found that film very ironical. So yeah, I think the world would be more sensible if I ruled it. I hope.
Well, hopefully, probably not, but hopefully you'll get to rule the world in a month.
Don't need to. We just need a lot of sensible people.
Yeah.
To be ruling the. I think this is the thing: is we've got to get through. Buddhists talk about the three evils, which are greed, anger, and stupidity, which all human beings have. Greed, anger, and stupidity. And you look at the world, you just see an awful lot of greed, anger, and stupidity. And by stupidity, I think what its fundamental core, it means not understanding the interconnectedness of everything. Really believing you can just carry on as we're going at the moment and not seeing what you're doing at the environment, in the environment. And so these are three qualities of the dark qualities of human beings. On the other hand, you also have courage, wisdom, and compassion. And I think this is what I'm talking about when I talk about a sensible world. I think if you can get people who are leaders with great courage, wisdom, and compassion, I'm thinking possibly Ahern, who is in New Zealand, from what I've seen of her. I mean, she's a human being, so she's obviously got greed, anger, and stupidity in her person as well. But she displays, generally speaking, more courage, wisdom, and compassion. Yeah, I think that's what we do, and we don't need one rule of the world. Definitely bad idea. We just need leaders with courage, wisdom, and compassion who actually care for people rather than businesses.
Right. And themselves.
Yes. Yeah. Well, actually, yes. I mean, you've got to look after yourself as well. I don't believe in sainthood. I don't believe in martyrdom. You've got to be sensible and look after yourself. But looking after everybody.
Yeah. And then, if your life was a movie, how would you want it to end?
Oh gosh, these are really good questions. I like these questions. You remind me of when I went to drama school. When I went to drama school back in the 1980s, in those days, you got a grant which paid for your tuition and gave you a living allowance. But it wasn't a mandatory grant, which all other courses were. It was a discretionary grant, and you had to go and be interviewed to be given this grant. And I remember saying during the interview, asking me about my life and what I thought what it would be as an actor. And it's kind of, the answer was similar to your questions. Like, if my life were a movie, I would probably write it an awful lot better than I've actually lived it.
Yeah, of course. I think everyone would.
It's kind of, it would be, kind of like, so what would my life be like if it were a movie? Or And how would it end? And how would it end?
Vincent is a huge muscular gladiator, and he goes off into a huge battle.
That's just kind of fantasy scenario.
Yeah.
You immediately remind me of the film Airplane, where the pilot turns to the boy in the cockpit.
Oh, yeah.
So, are you a fan of gladiator movies? Wrong on every level. Because I don't know. Yeah, I kind of. Yes, it would. I think it's the ending part. Hopefully, a long way away. My father passed away when he was 97. My mother when she was 88. So I'm really hoping that I've got another 30 years, 20 or 30 years to go before I had to peacefully, quietly, without pain, dementia, the usual things that.
Yeah.
But having created value in the world, how do I want my life to end? I want it to end after I've created value, left something to be remembered for, something that, and I don't necessarily just mean the films or anything, or a big book or a big prize, or all the things, but actually just to have made a difference in my community. To be remembered, I'm always admiring of people local politicians. By joining the Green Party, I've got to meet our local candidates for our local election, and they work so hard. And I just think, that you're the person that I would like to emulate. So, having done some good, I guess.
Nice. And let's hope you have 20 more years.
Yes. Yeah, hope so. Touch wood, he says, desperately touching wood.
And in that case, where would you like to see yourself in 10 years?
That's interesting, isn't it? Okay, where would I like to have seen myself? Having published some more books, certainly I'm the one that I've been promising for the last 2 or 3 years, collection of short stories. And got that finished. I'd be doing a lot of art and acting. Creating, but also, I would like, in 10 years, I would definitely like to have seen myself serving as a politician, as a Green politician, a councillor, certainly a local councillor within the next 10 years, just working with community and helping, so that you're really on the ground, working with people, trying to sort out people's problems. It's just, we were out canvassing yesterday, and I just somebody said, well, if you could do something about the rats that are running around, because he pointed to the neighboring property, and we, in fact, whilst we were there were, I just think, if I could do something about that to help that person out, that would be wonderful. So yes, that's doing all my creative stuff. I'll never not want to do my creative stuff. I always have all these images and plays and films and scripts and words going through my head all the time, trying to get them out. Doing all that stuff, but being a politician as well.
Nice.
In terms of doing
it seems like you just kind of found out about that as a new passion. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why I keep on kicking myself for having left it to the age of 60 to actually, 60 plus, if I'm more honest. I always feel in my life that I feel like, why wasn't I doing this earlier? Why wasn't I actually just thinking, doing? And I think a lot of it, and I think for a lot of people, you kind of either, you're either busy doing other things, or you think you're not good enough to help. I think, what can I do to help? Is one of the reasons why people don't do things. And I think people really don't understand just how powerful they are. I remember being on a Buddhist course years ago, and this lady talking about, she said, and people were just standing up and saying what they'd learned during the course. And what she said was, just because I am not perfect doesn't mean I'm rubbish. I think that is one of the great truths of our life. And you're absolutely right. I think one of the things that's always held me back is like, well, what can I do? I mean, there's this reason I'm going to be going away working. I mean, I need to go off and do acting. I won't be reliable. I won't be able to do this. I won't be able to do that.
Yeah.
But actually, I mean, obviously during the pandemic, everything has been different. I've been around a lot more. But if I look back over the years previously, I could really have been doing for the Dream Party now than what I'm doing now, if I really thought about it. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. Awesome. So this is why I want another 20 years to make up the last 60.
Yes. It's funny because like earlier this year, I interviewed Gus G. I don't know if you know him. He's a fantastic guitarist. He plays in a band called Firewind. He played on one album with Ozzy Osbourne. So,
oh, I've heard of Firewind. Yes. Yeah.
So, and he was talking about this too, like looking back at his life. But it's funny because for me, like I'm only 18. And when I did that interview, I was 17. And it was, for me, it's like the other way around because I only got 17 years to look back on, and a lot I don't even remember. You know what I mean? So for me, it's like, where am I going? Like, what path am I going to take with this life, you know?
That's an interesting question, isn't it? This is why I love talking to young people, because it's the thing, God, I'm jealous. I wish, because the fight.
Yeah.
But of course, we all have completely different paths, and trust me, things were very different back in the 1970s.
Oh, I bet.
Very, very different. Yeah, I think the only thing, you are creating the rest of your life. Today is the only important day.
Right.
What you are doing right now, today, is the important thing. There's a lovely Leo Tolstoy wrote a short story in which an emperor or a king asked the wisest man in the country, what is the most important task? 3 things that he asked him, and I can't remember the 3 things. What is the most important task? Oh, yes. What is the most important task? Who is the most important country? And what is the most important time? And of course, you think he's expecting, well, the most important country is me. I'm the emperor. I'm the king. And the man said no. And the wise man just said, no, the person you are speaking to right now is the most important person in the world. Whatever conversation you are having, that is the most important conversation in the world. What is the most important time now, right now? Because that's the only thing you can actually change, experience, or do something with, learn from. The past is very good from learning from.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it gives you. And it puts you in a particular place and so on. But from where you are, that's all the past gives you. And how you deal with the past is in this moment is really the thing that's going to define your happiness. And what is the most important task? It is helping other people. And I think that is that every time I can, I will always help somebody else. I don't do it. And again, I just think, well, I'm not done enough. And I could have been doing far more than I've done practically to go out and help people. But I always do my best whenever I can to try and help people. I find that incredibly wise and terribly profound. And I do try, when you're stuck in a boring conversation, and you think, oh, what's this person want from me? What are they talking about? I don't understand. I need to be here. I think, no, Nick, shut up. Listen. Really, there is a lot. And there's another. One of the great things of growing up in the 1960s is that we got all these wonderful posters from a company called Athena, with these wise sayings. One of which is a piece of prose called Desiderata. And that contains the line, listen to the dull and the ignorant, for they too have their story. And I think that is, again, shows great wisdom and courage and compassion to actually just say, this is the person. It doesn't, and if that person is rambling, they just want to be heard.
Yeah.
As we all do. And I think that's incredibly important.
Nice.
Thank you.
Some wise words there.
Do my best. It's taken me 60 odd years, to remember all these things I've learned from other people.
Right. Just endless circle of life, I
Well,
guess.
yeah, the line I've often used, but I'm making these stupid mistakes so that you can learn from them.
Right.
If I get something incredibly wrong, it's just, I really hope, even if I don't learn from this, somebody else is going to look at me and go, idiot, I'm never going to do that.
In that case, what advice would you like? Well, I'm 18, so what advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
That's a very good question, and particularly my 18-year-old self, because my 18-year-old self was coming to terms with the fact that he was gay, just finished school, was really in a very dark place. In fact, I had to go to the Samaritans. Do you have the Samaritans over there? Or no, not Samaritans. Samaritans is basically a helpline for anybody who's feeling suicidal or needs just somebody to talk to. And it is, and I went to see the Samaritans and try and talk over this problem. And kind of just actually, because 18 years old, we're talking about 1976. Not good time to be gay. I mean, it got even worse in the 80s. So there was that. And I also knew that I was going to have major reconstructive surgery done on my face. I was born undershot, with my teeth meeting like this. So they had to cut away my top jaw. I knew I was going to have major life-changing surgery, because it did actually change my face. So just to give you the background, this is what my 18-year-old self was. I think what I would tell my 18-year-old self is, gosh, because I don't think he'd listen. I'm not quite convinced he'd listen, because it's really hard when you're dealing with all this stuff to sometimes actually take on the advice.
Yeah.
But actually, you are stronger than you think you are. You're actually, you do, I think the advice I give would actually come back to the Buddhism of you contain courage, wisdom, and compassion. You also contain greed, anger, and stupidity. It is entirely up to you, which of these you let dominate your life, which in any given moment, it is entirely up to you how you behave and how you react. Now, a lot of philosophers say, actually, no, that's not true. There are bigger forces. It's God's decision. There are other things, or there's your past, or there's where you've been, or there's this, or you're that, or you're whatever it is, saying that it's out of your control. And I don't believe that. I do believe it's in our control. I believe it is our responsibility, because that is freedom. This means that because you have this courage, wisdom, and compassion, you can get through this, Nick. You will be able to get through this. I wish I'd known then because I didn't meet the Buddhism until many years later. So yeah, I really wish I'd known that then.
Yeah.
Because I think that's good advice.
Right. Yeah. I feel like that's actually something I've worked on, I think like a year ago or something. I used to be pretty judgmental. And I tried to change that into compassion, because sometimes when you think differently, you realize, oh, but maybe this happened and that also happened to me. So it's kind of, it sucks for this guy that he's in this position now. Like, I can't really think of an example now, but sometimes it's so easy to change judgmental thoughts into compassionate thoughts, because it's better for yourself too. And that's I mean,
it is.
That's the main reason I made that change, kind of.
And well done for realizing that, because it really, I mean, the phrase bearing a grudge.
Yeah, exactly.
That means carrying around something that is hurting you. The other person who you're bearing a grudge against is probably totally unaware of what
exactly
what the perceived slight is, and it took me a lot longer to make that journey. I think I probably only made that, stopped being quite so judgmental in the last few years. I think since encountering Buddhism, and which was, gosh, it's decades ago now. And I stopped practicing some time ago as well. But believe in the philosophy. I think it's such a valuable thing. I do still sometimes have to catch myself and go,
of course,
think about it. Just think about it. Because it's easy, because I think it's a very emotional reaction to judge other people, because you're feeling hurt, you're feeling threatened, you're feeling,
it's very natural.
It is very natural. And you've just reminded me another piece of wisdom, another little piece of nugget. If somebody is angry with you, they're shouting and angry, just look at them straight in the eye and say, how can I help? Now, you're going to get a very confused reaction. I mean, you can also say, I'm guilty. I completely take responsibility, if that's the situation, depending on what it is. I remember a guy in a car pulling up next to me because I cut him up, and he pulled up and he wound his window down, and I said, I am so sorry I cut you up. That was my mistake entirely. And he just looked at me and said, I can't be angry with you now. He was just like, he said, oh, well, okay, thank you. And then drove off, and it was just the look of his face like, I can't be angry. You've just taken that away from me.
That is so funny.
And I think, but also that thing of, how can I help? And really understanding that anger is mostly based on fear.
Yeah.
If, people, when they're angry, are mostly afraid. When you see angry people on the TV demonstrating or whatever it is they're doing, they're afraid. Somebody's probably thinking about America and the storming of the White House, of the Congress. I think that is somebody playing on people's fears. In fact, that's what Trump and our current Prime Minister Boris Johnson do very well. This is what we talk. This is when we talk about fascism and right-wing politicians. That's what they do. They play on people's fears, and they give out, something for them to blame. It's the immigrants. It's the EU. It's not you. You're okay. You're going to be fine. It's not them. It's not us. It's them. And that's the exploitation of fear. So really well done, Roger. I'm really pleased. And I hated to have to tell you this. You will need to keep them. I suspect you will. You may be a far better human being than I am. In fact, almost certainly. But it will happen again. And sometimes it's really easy.
For sure. Yeah, it would be kind of arrogant and ignorant, especially to think that I've already become the wise man I will be in 80 years. If I get 80 more years, I hope to learn a lot more lessons like this.
Yeah. I do some good as well.
Yes, for sure. I think that's a great note to end this interview on. Is there anything you would like to add?
The only thing I would like to add is something that came out last year during lockdown. I did a show the year before last called I Am Monsters, which is all about me being a monster and why I felt I was a monster, and acknowledging those parts of myself that are monstrous. And somebody asked, because obviously I was hoping to do this as a live one-man show that I was doing. And that didn't happen last year. Somebody asked me to film an excerpt from it. And when I was rewriting it and rethinking about it, I think the truth that I've learned is that when we celebrate difference and do not fear it, we create peace.
Yes.
That is, I have even put it on a t-shirt because I just think, that's what I'm trying to say. That is one of the things that I am trying to say that I think is really important. If we're going to end, that's how I'd like to end it.
Awesome. That's an even better note to end it on. Thank you so much for your time. This was way
Roger,
too much fun.
Thank you so much. This has been wonderful because you have asked such intelligent and interesting questions. You make me think. I like it when people make me think.
Awesome.
So, thank you very much indeed.
Awesome. And to everyone watching, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys next time. See ya.